Yes, now we are. Perfect. Got a transcript there. All right, and now we're on board. So I'm gonna skip over a few stuff. And start with introductions. Good evening. My name is Mateen Sarsi. I'm the co-chair of the Housing, Land Use and Zoning Committee.
I'm David Ratner, the other co-chair of the Housing, Land Use and Zoning Committee.
We're joined by our committee member, Juan. I'll pass it to you.
Hi, my name is Juan Morales. I'm a high school teacher at Philip Randolph High School. I live on Convent Avenue and 149th Street since 1990.
Right on. And
We have some public members. We have Victor here.
we have Victor here. It's recognizing our chair. And then I also want to recognize our colleagues from the Department of City Planning. Okay. Yes. Forum. Audrey and Jose, welcome.
Hi, everyone.
And Teresa, with you coming in, I'll actually start to plan just this.
It's pretty simple. It's really pretty yourself.
I'll send it to you again. Send you the
Okay.
Just
in the lot.
Sweet.
Welcome back to the country.
Thank you. I don't know if it's great to be back.
I know that's right. Good to get away, right?
No worse places to be in the world, I guess.
Yeah,
We have a super quorum.
we have a super quorum. All right, so in that case, I'll start the call to order. We are at 6:43. I'll start with the adoption of the agenda. Do I have a motion?
Moved.
Awesome, second. Awesome, thank you, Therese, for seconding. Looking at. I think everyone should have a copy of the February minutes. Do we want to adopt? Do I hear a motion?
Yeah, you know what, before we adopt, just wanted to note that, Michael. You know, another figure, but he was not a member of the league anymore,
Thank you.
so I think that needs.
Sweet, I appreciate that. And any other friendly changes? Do we want to adopt? All right, second,
Second.
Teresa. We have our minutes. We started off with introductions. Teresa, we'll move on to you. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Oh, I'm Teresa Coles Reagan.
Yeah. And then our other committee member?
Hi, I'm Maria.
Awesome. Perfect. So the first thing I'm gonna start off with in terms of announcements is actually a really big one. This is gonna be for. The first thing I'm going to do is, I don't have a copy of this here. But I'm going to increase. I can't see past it. Hello.
Sorry, were you saying hello to me?
Yeah, no, I was speaking a little bit to myself. No, one of the things I was doing is one of the things that you'll notice in the chat is I just added, and I'll pop this up for everyone to see. is gonna be this month's, kind of like resources and stuff. So this is kind of just building up on, last month for anything happening between, March and our next meeting. You'll be able, it's probably helpful if I share. Boom, Twitter. Screen share. Oh. Okay. So one of the things that I'm sharing with everyone is gonna be things that are happening in the district, up until the next time we meet. So you have your, the next time we're meeting at the general board. And then our next committee meeting next month. One of the things that you'll see are a list of events and resources that are happening at any given, time. Specifically for folks in the district, this is gonna, cover everything from tenants to owners, realtors, organizers, faith-based organizations. NYCHA would be in my NYCHA app workshop. I always wish NYCHA would do more of these because it's actually a decent app. For DLB building after hours, city planning commission meetings. For anybody who's looking to get into a career in government, there is a 101 info session. And then I'm gonna touch up on this one a little bit later, but there's also to be a workshop on the charter amendments. I'll kind of let Audrey kind of take up on that one more. And then our upcoming city council budget hearings. We just got back the preliminary budget from the mayor's office. Hey, welcome. Because it was released in January. And so one of the things that I'll kind of bring up in discussion is some of the preliminary responses, specifically with us. But like I said, this is now in the chat. I'm gonna make sure it's available to everyone here. I don't have any copies, but I'll make sure I'll send it out. Cool. So that's the only thing I have for announcements is going to be the next thing up, and I'm actually now moving into new business only because it kind of goes right hand to hand, is 1727 Amsterdam Avenue. So this one, DCP ended up voting for it to move forward. And one of the things that ended up happening recently, actually, as of last week, on March 3rd, was the city council decided to put 1727 Amsterdam on the agenda and decided to tell nobody here. So when the public hearing was had with the subcommittee on dispositions, the community board nor anybody who was part of the community board and its vocal opposition was a part of this meeting. And so as a result of it, one of the first things that we kind of ended up doing ourselves was in collaboration with folks is doing an outreach e-blast in terms of getting folks to submit testimony. Just noting that at the hearing itself, there was a lot of positive support for the supportive housing, but when you exclude an entire group who has feedback to say, it doesn't really cause for a good participation, and it shows. And so just as an addition to that, one of the things that we did just to kind of like follow up on this, and a huge shout out to our chair, who reached out to me, then I had to reach out to Councilmember Chris Marte's office. Thankfully, I still have some friends there, and so one of the things that Chris Marte's office is doing is they're specifically going to make sure that any testimony that was submitted from the community is prioritized when they do their review. Now that the testimony period is closed. So it at least, it gives them an acknowledgement that, we did have things to say. I ended up giving them a submission of 3 different testimonies, one from myself, one from former Chair Barry Weinberg, and then one from Andres, just to kind of show the different opposing views towards the same project, opposing but complementary of the same project. And to really hit the strong points at the end of the day, what we are saying and what we had to say, because it was mentioned by the council member at the hearing, was that we were misinformed in NIMBYs, which if anybody read our resolution, if anybody's come to our meetings, you'd see that that's not the case in the slightest. We're, not only are we quite informed, but we've been asking for an upzoning, which I still don't understand why we have to fight for an upzoning when, but that's a different story. The next follow-up from this is going to be at the subcommittee's vote, which is gonna take place on March 18th.
Well, it's not scheduled, is it? As of
Already?
Schedule.
the meeting, but I didn't see the agenda.
Yeah, but we're gonna assume that it's
Okay.
going to pop up there because the
Okay.
moment they make the vote, it's gonna go to the committee on land use. And all they're gonna do is affirm the subcommittee's vote.
Right.
Which subcommittee is this?
It's a very long name.
It's public sightings, dispositions. And
It's a brand new committee.
there's
Yeah,
one more.
So it just popped up with this subcommittee?
yeah. No, and it's kind of interesting how they're, it's not interesting, it's sneaky. But the kind of crazy thing about the way they're going about it is by putting the disposition stuff onto the subcommittee, they could kind of just make sure that they kind of do what they did with us on this particular project and kind of just do that for everyone moving forward. Hopefully, that's not the case. But again, we've been saying that we haven't had transparency on this project from the beginning, and when you have elected officials who do things like that, it doesn't help. So that's kind of where we are with 1727. If for more details on the meeting on the 18th, that's going to be on the city council website, specifically on the legislature calendar. And you'll be able to see what time and what's the next location of the meeting spot. So we'll anticipate being there just to kind of hear what comes from that. I'm very curious to hear Councilmember Chris Marte's take, because he's chairing that committee, and we'll see where that goes. Do we have any questions before I move on to the next?
I just want to follow up. I think that the disrespect toward the community has been obvious, and I hesitate to give any attention to their name calling. But I think that the way that this was scheduled demonstrates further disrespect toward the community and its residents. And I also think it shows neglect toward the duty of the city council. The city council has a duty to record a full record. That is their task by law. And so not including the testimony of a large number of community residents does not in any way exhibit the full record. So, people can and should contact the members of that subcommittee, and the director of land use at city council, just to, express if they have any concern about the completeness of the record. I mean, this is their statutory obligation and their job. And so I would just stress those 2 points. I think, the disrespect toward the community goes hand in hand with, I mean, what are they really doing, right? I'm not gonna get into that conversation, but the disrespect for the community and not really wanting to show a full record. I think, some of you will be able to answer that question for yourselves. And we have a long history of dealing with this sort of procedure in this project. The question that I have is, and this is a question I think has been coming up again and again in some of the conversations. Is there another hearing at the Committee on Land Use? Or is it the sort of pro forma perfunctory vote that you were suggesting? So do we know?
I'm kind of guessing only because my parliamentary isn't fully up there, but
Yeah.
what I do understand, the subcommittee is going to make they're gonna do the legwork.
Yeah.
And that the only thing the land use committee would then do is either affirm or change their vote, but
Right.
But it's the catch-22.
Right.
It's this back and forth. I mean, and it's like he's saying, that everything is done underhandedly. You know what I mean? So this that's why I implement it, seems like they won already. So what's the sense? I mean, you'd be beating their head up against a brick wall. It's ridiculous.
No, because if we do that, then they keep doing it. So if
Exactly.
you don't fight back,
Yeah, I understand the fight back, but I'm just saying they do things underhandedly over and over and over.
yeah, but again, what I'm saying is. You have to stand up to them and you have to make it really ugly. So that they know that community board 9 is not to mess with.
Right.
And I couldn't care less what Sean Abreu calls people. Because he's the number one person who who oversteps his boundaries. Alright, this is if there is a tragic hero, this is it. And at one point, Mondani is gonna hear about it. And there will be no more pictures with him, I can tell you that. And ironically, the last time I brought something up like this, the recording missed my words. So I'm gonna say it again and again until, if I get reappointed, then so be it, but if I'm not, it'll be on the record.
That's unfortunate because if you don't seem to agree with them, you know what I mean, you're ousted. Come on, I mean, we can agree to disagree.
It's true.
And, if it works that way, then I guess nobody would be reappointed ever.
Well, it is ironic though, because my understanding that there were so few people who were aware of the hearing that even the council member had to request the supporters of this project write in because not enough people at the hearing were present to give an opinion, not enough members of the public. So
It was definitely noted that the moment we started reaching out to folks to start getting the word out, that's the moment we started seeing Sean's office respond to it. Yeah, it's unfortunate.
So respectfully, we have, some of us have actually been working on this for the past 4 years and really gone to bat on it, behind the scenes, reaching out to a number of council members. In fact, I have emailed every single council member on that subcommittee. Last night I spoke to Gail Brewer and she has, well, maybe, never mind. But just expect that it's not just about getting potentially another hearing, but the other strategy might be to get the vote for the subcommittee deferred until the land use committee meets. And that is key. That is really when we all have to show up in droves and bring testimony about why this project is so catastrophic.
Yes.
And that's on the 18th. Right, Tiffany?
Sorry, I just unmuted. Yeah,
Yeah, it's on the 18th.
Yeah.
Whatever the public hearing is. But we understand that it's not, it goes rather quickly.
Right.
So whereas at the subcommittee level, the community would have had the opportunity to comment and answer questions, from the subcommittee. It's not the same at the public hearing. You give your testimony, which is a timed testimony, and then there's a quick vote after.
And it's so important. I know there are only about 5 of you guys in the room right now, but to speak to other folks who were not able to attend tonight's meeting, and not just people who are on this board, just residents of the community, this entire community, to come and give a testimony, especially since individually we only have, 2 or 3 minutes to speak, but collectively we can have a lot more time.
That's
And
great.
yeah, and I would strongly urge everyone else to do the same thing, which is reaching out to both the subcommittee as well as the larger land use committee, and even the speaker, Julie
Right.
Mann's office.
Yeah, I would include the speaker as well.
Yeah.
some of the contact.
And her director of land use is Omar Torobaka. He would be the, or Omar Torobaka will be the person to contact to request a second hearing. And I would emphasize the fact that, you know, ULURP is enshrined in the New York City Charter. So to not have notified neither the community board nor the public is a dereliction of duty, certainly of the council member, but I'm not really sure. In fact, this is a question for both of you guys, chairs. What does the statute say about whose responsibility it is to notify the public about hearings such as these?
That's a good point.
That is a very good question.
I can look into.
Yeah, we'd have to double check.
Yeah, I mean, it's my understanding that they have to notify through this record, which, as we mentioned, you know, they did, but no, it's not a meaningful notification.
Right.
And then,
Because
No.
I've never seen a situation where they didn't notify the community board. It's one thing to not notify the rest of the community surrounding the project, but the board at the very least should have been notified.
they don't have, there's no legal obligation for that. But I think you're right, it's common courtesy and practice.
Yeah.
And,
That's my understanding, yeah.
Hmm.
If I may, co-chairs, Victor, if I just may, I have reached out after this bamboozled event to Sean's office, and they said they were not obligated to contact myself or the board directly. It was advertised in the city record as required. But what I found interesting was the people in favor of this project were all there. The three people who were there, all in favor. Brother, Sister Soul, a developer, BRC, of course. I'm like, well, they all read the city record and we didn't. I said, you know, knowing the opposition to this in the community, I know in the community board, I would have thought you would have reached out and notified us so you could just hear the other side, you know, regardless of what the vote is, just to hear the other side of the coin and what we're saying. And that's what I was meant with. They're not obligated, so we'll see. Secondly, I just wanted to thank the people not on the board who have rallied around this, that are on the call and in person there to really help push this forward, to let people know that the board is not going to take this laying down at all, or this topic or any other that affects us. We're just as good as the East Side, we're just as good as Soho and any other place, and we will be speaking up. So thank you so much for that input all around. Thanks.
We're much cooler than the East Side, it was, please.
well, no, thank you. I would add that although they don't have any obligation to notify the board, the council has a duty to maintain a complete record. And so by not, you know, let's say that the current record of testimony is absolutely incomplete based on public knowledge of this project. And so, you know, if we follow Tiffany's advice and contact the council members and the staff, we have a very strong case that the notice was not meaningful and that the record is incomplete, and that by allowing it to persist, the council members are not carrying out their duties. So I think you're absolutely right.
There's a hand up.
I'm not sure we need it.
I think that Anita.
Oh,
Is that you, Anita? Put your hand up. Want to unmute?
Anita.
Hello. I was trying to unmute. I have been having the experience of trying to contact the mayor's office. I called 311 and, you know, made a report which can only be 50 words long. And then through the through the web portal. It's 500 words. I did a few of those, including the public advocate. But the email notifications that I got back said that the relevant agency would respond to me in 14 days, which means that, you know, if I have, you know, a comment that I would like to make to the mayor, it seems like I can only make it to HPD. Or if I have a comment that I want to make to the mayor, if I want to, you know, make the mayor aware of something, I can only contact, you know, our council member. The council member's office and HPD are the people who would respond to me when, you know, I would really like to contact the mayor. I don't know if anyone else, you know, about these issues that we're talking about. Does anyone have I mean, you don't have to tell me, but if anyone has a contact or knows how to contact the mayor, that would be helpful, because I can't seem to do it.
Went to the advocate's office, as promised, and I met with one of the reps. And she sat down with me and we went over my landlord, the whole history of that. So now I have contact with them. I will send you that info. And then I also went to see a Weaver's office. And there's a gentleman at the front who heard my conversation with the guard, who didn't want to let me in. But he heard my troubles and he took my documents, and then they sent me an email reply for rental ripoff. And I'm going to testify at the end of the month. So, Anita, I know it's hard, but if you guys go down there, they are good people and they will be good people to talk to. This is not the previous administration where you hit walls, close doors. No, it's actually human beings there, well capable of doing work, who will be there to listen. I'm not just saying it because I'm a leftist, but because there's good people down there. That's it.
And where is that, please? Could you put it in the chat?
You have to go to City Hall.
Huh?
You have to go to the
It's in
office
the
that you
City
want
Hall.
to talk to. In person, so that.
Yeah,
somebody-
but where? What office?
I
The
went to
mayor's
the,
administration is pretty large. So
Like
City
one
Hall, we have to go to City Hall? Is that what you're saying?
the advocate's office. Okay, it's in City Hall, see a Weaver's office in City Hall. If you want the specific address, I will send you an email.
Yeah, and the name, because for some reason it's not translating correctly over my Zoom. Something Weaver, you said?
Yeah.
Yeah, if you wouldn't mind placing that in the chat. And I just raised my hand again. If I could just quickly do a suggestion that not a suggestion, a request to the community board. We, the CPO, are have reached out through the portal to the mayor's office, and I'll be mailing a letter inviting him to the community. But I think it would have more weight if the community board extends an invitation to the mayor to visit the community. He's been up here 2 or 3 times, the most recent at the Sugar Hill Children's Museum. And that would have been an opportunity for Victor or someone else to make contact with him. As I wrote, our steering committee, in the old days, you know, people would give you some intel when electeds are going to be in the community, especially those that we've had difficulty reaching. But today, that network doesn't exist, and people tend not to communicate that widely. So, but I think our note states that we're a coalition of community organizations. And I think if a letter also went to the mayor's office inviting him to the community so that, you know, you could have a better idea of what's here than coming up directly to the Sugar Hill Museum or to Sharpton's Action Network meetings on the weekend. I think it would be a good thing. And we could use housing as a hook.
Great suggestion, you, and I will follow through. I've been in talks with our borough president as well regarding this, but I will make contact to invite our new mayor up.
Right,
Sure.
I'm also inviting, the speaker,
Okay, yes.
yeah. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So that's all I got on 1720. Yes.
This March 18th vote, how many more, like, is this, obviously, you said the subcommittee influences the actual vote, but like, how many more, like, is this the granting of the project, or what else is left in them getting an approval to
Well,
break ground?
after it goes through city council, it would go directly to the mayor at that point, if I'm correct. Audrey, correct me if I'm wrong.
That's,
After city council, it goes to the mayor.
there's 3 more votes.
Yeah, so after the vote, well, actually, before the vote, there can be city council modifications. And so if that happens, I believe, and this would be perhaps a better suited to Jose, because I think he's gone through this, it would have a city council mod and it would come back to us. And, you know, we'd present to the commission, but if there's no modifications proposed, then it would go to the mayor for signing or veto.
Oh, okay.
I found the authority, if you do, the notice does have to be given to the concerned community board or community boards, as well as for a president and for.
They
The
do, so
notice
they
for
do
the
have to
subcommittee?
report?
I
With
that's-
these
I'm
reasons,
sure-
so they do have to report?
Public hearing.
Yeah,
They have to report.
that's separate, and that was given by the community, yeah, so that's,
Yeah, so maybe there isn't any for some.
right. I just,
It's interesting to
but
think of.
everyone.
Is that what
It depends on whether it's a
she said
public
they're
hearing.
supposed to report?
It is a public.
Well, if it's a public hearing, then that should be. Tough. It's fine, but yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
What do you?
Yeah,
You what?
yeah. Thank you.
Administrative code of city.
My understanding is that the notice is constituted by a placement of the ad in the city record.
Well, no, because those are also said here. Um, it mentions several things. Have to do. Publication in the city record, publication in the city planning calendar. To the applicant. As well as. So that shouldn't be.
Is there a requirement for hearing at DCP, to the council? Okay.
Does anybody have any information about BRC's funding running out in a matter of months?
No, the most I looked through their financial statement, and this was part of the technical evidence that the city planning was asking for before. I mean, part of the argument that I was kind of making was when you consider how much HPD was pushing something like this, and PRC almost entirely is funded by city subsidy. And so I'm looking at their records and it's kind of looking, for me, I'm kind of looking at it like, okay, if you're coming to us and you're saying you don't know what the funding's gonna be like, we don't know what's happening because of the current administration. But at the same time, we're going to give a subsidy to a nonprofit that specifically only gets a majority of subsidies to the city government. So if it makes me wonder, like, if something were to happen funding wise, then a nonprofit who very much depends on city subsidy, no longer having city subsidy, makes me wonder what's gonna happen to their assets. And so like, that was kind of like the push we were kind of looking at, but even pointing out that even though they had on paper the sophistication to handle what we were recommending, And we still didn't want them there just because of the whole background. Yeah, that's about as much as I.
So there's no date certain or something.
No, and this was their June 2025 financials.
Since Audrey and Jose are here, I have a question about what I was asking earlier, the record. It's my understanding, hi Audrey, hi Jose, no hard feelings about the vote. It's my understanding that the testimony, all the submitted testimony is going to be published. First of all, I wanna know if that's true, where I can access it. I think it would be useful for the city council to see the profound turnout that we had in January at DCP. So that's really where this question is coming from.
Thank you for the question. You know, I'm not sure if the testimony gets published. I know it goes to the CPC commissioners and they read it, you know, before the public hearing and before the vote, you know, depending on when it's submitted. But let me check on that for you. And if Jose is on the line, maybe he would be able to speak to that.
I mean, I assume they're public documents, right? It was all public testimony.
But isn't there a recording that we can run through Otter or something at a transcript if it's not available?
Yes.
Yeah, I can drop the link to the meeting in the chat.
Okay.
Right, but I think there's also a distinction between the written testimonies and what was said at the, you know, I mean, obviously my written testimony was far longer than what I was able to say in the 3 minutes. Well, I suppose.
So you're looking for a copy of the written testimonies?
Yeah, really, so that HPG, so that the city council, all of them, ideally.
Chair, I have a quick question for Audrey, and then I have to step away. And I'm not trying to put you in a spot, but normally when there's a ULURP, I've been on meetings where DCP would give a heads up to the committee to say this is coming up or whatever. And I know it's not your responsibility, but I have been on meetings where this has happened. And I just wondered, the meeting previously to the subcommittee hearing, did you have any, did DCP have any notification or any hint that it would be held soon?
Yes, we did.
The most
And-
interesting.
And someone from DCP was here at the committee meeting before the hearing, and I just wondered why, you know, the reminder wasn't, you know, brought up during the meeting, because
Yeah.
as you know, we have 2 new chairs.
Yes.
And you know, they're just sort of getting their feet wet, and they might not have been following, you know, the ULURP process and the dates closely. And Sean knows that because he's removed people who are more experienced with the process. But it would have been nice if DCP had given this board a heads up. And I dare ask, were you instructed not to?
We were not instructed not to. I think Jose, I think that's accurate.
Yeah,
Extremely fair to say. We normally, you know, we're checking the city record too, especially because of the budget conversations that are happening. You know, the meetings are not, you know.
Audrey, can you just hold on to that thought for a
Sure.
second? Train going by, maybe if you can start that thought again.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're also checking the city record and, you know, against our internal timelines. From DCP's perspective, you know, it's hard to sometimes, like, I learn every day, you know, at every meeting from the community board. you know, about procedures and what is known and what is not known. And so, so we did know about it, and my assumption was that the board knew about it as well. But this is, you know, for me, a great learning experience to know that, you know, just to not assume these things, and certainly going forward, you know, it's something we can absolutely flag for the community, but it's not a requirement per se.
Okay, it's
But
just
we have to do it.
unfortunate with all the discussions regarding 1727 that,
Yes.
you know, that such an assumption should have been made. But, you know, it's
I
what
hear you.
happened. Yeah.
I hear you, and I appreciate the critique.
And last year we had so many meetings with City of US, and they had so many assumptions about what we knew and what we didn't know. And they were so unprepared all the time. And I was so tired listening hours of my life, listening to people. And when they drop the ball, it makes me very angry. You know what I mean? That administration was so corrupt, and yet all the infrastructure that they built is still here. They should erase all that. Anything that he put his hand on is not clean. You know what I mean? I'm so angry.
Sorry, the question was about the city council meetings or the city planning commission vote. Because I want to make
Question was about the upcoming, well, it has happened, subcommittee hearing.
right. You know,
On 1727, and I realize it's not your response, DPC's responsibility. However, my experience with this committee, you know, DCP has always, you know, not notified, but, you know, given the committee a heads up, especially on those issues that are really triggering for this community. And I'm surprised that nothing was said about an upcoming subcommittee hearing, this committee's meeting before the hearing itself.
No, for sure. And I do apologize for that because I happened to be out that week. You know, I am typically, and I want to clarify that is, as you completely said it before, completely right. That is not our purview. And, you know, if you ask most planners in the city planning office, we are, you know, sometimes completely unaware of what happens after the commission votes because that kind of ends the involvement of the city planning department, unless, as Audrey has said, there is a modification and then, you know, there is a evaluation of the modification, so on, it goes back to city council. So even trying to get that information comes a lot from us. And I did have, like, you know, the intention to reach out on that, but it's extremely confusing. So I don't even expect, you know, people to just go and try to find information about upcoming hearings. As somebody mentioned before, you know, looking for agendas or even record notices are extremely confusing in the legislature website. And that's something that we have raised in the past. But, you know, it's something that we cannot change. And, you know, we're working to trying to understand that process because we also have some differences with what city council believe is our role and what they believe is the role in terms of the modifications and interpretations. So, you know, that question was tabled given the end of administration in December. And a lot of people are also asking, trying to meet the mayor and getting to talk to him. The Department of City Planning is also waiting for a meet and greet with the mayor and the new administration. So, you know, we are hoping that these things can be addressed in this upcoming, you know, change. And we have talented people in the council now. Yep.
Are you talking about trying to change the process?
No, try to change the process, but it's, you know, it's sure that there is a communication in the process and also flag these things about, you know, proper noticing because although
but I'm gonna shut up in a second. But Jose, my question was very clear and direct. My question was, did CPC know about the subcommittee hearing when they met, when the community board met before the subcommittee hearing, whatever month that was, the last meeting before the subcommittee hearing? were you aware that the subcommittee hearing was coming up? And I
No.
thought
No.
Audrey said yes, that she was.
So we
No,
know,
no.
yeah, we know, like, you know, I'll drop it in the chat. There's, you can sign up for notifications about the city record. Comes out every week. And so that's, you know, we have internal timelines, but the most accurate one is the city record.
Jose, just my question to Audrey was, can we access the submitted testimony for the planning commission vote? So all of the testimony submitted by the public, I assume that's public record. My understanding is that it's published, but Audrey said that you might have a better sense. We understand that the commissioners read it, but it might also be useful if the city council were able to see some of that testimony.
Yeah, and let me double check with our pipeline and commission operations team, because that information, was submitted through the public portal. I don't know specifically if that gets also forwarded with the transmittal of the CPC report that goes to city council, but I can follow up with the board as soon as Thursday when I'm back in the office. In the past, what we will do is typically, attach all the correspondence that we got for community boards and residents to the CPC report. That had stopped up to 6 months, 8 months ago with a new process of just including the community board recommendation, resolution, and board of president recommendation or resolution only. So, I think there's a lot of also process improvement that's being put in place on that, and that was some sort of update that they have made into that process. When I started DCP, we used to attach every single documentation that was sent to us, but I'm pretty sure that it's saved somewhere because they were sent to us in emails and also emails directly to the CPC or the team working for the CPC. So I can follow up with that. Worst case scenario, that comes through a FOIL and is safe in our records. But I'll follow up. I don't want to give you an answer yes or no because I'm not sure.
That's helpful. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, thank you. All right. Just because we're already an hour in, I do want to go into, actually, I'm gonna move up charter amendments only because I realized I didn't write it down in my notes. And I got an email a little bit later from Audrey. Did you want to make an announcement, Audrey?
Sure. So, unfortunately, this committee meeting, will be my last committee meeting at CB9. Starting.
Oh, hang on, Audrey, again, we've got the, if we can turn. Yeah.
Just say anything.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, great. So unfortunately, this will be my last meeting at the CB9 Housing, Land Use and Zoning Committee. As of March 30th, I will be joining a team at HPD. And I will be, at our training and info session on the 21st. So this won't be the last time we see each other, but I just want to say thank you so much to the committee and to the community. I learned so much from you, and it has really been truly one of the highlights of my job at DCP, working with this committee and seeing the passion and dedication and just extreme depth of knowledge that everyone brings to the table. So I just want to say thank you for the opportunity to be your DCP liaison. It's been great.
Before you go on, Audrey, we want to return that and thank you for the incredible amount of help that you've given to us and the way that you've acted, at least certainly since the time that I've been here, and I suspect for far longer than that. And I think I speak for everybody in saying that we'll miss you, but wish you good luck.
Thank you. I'll miss you as well. And yeah, but fortunately, you're in Jose's very capable hands. I feel like no one at the agency knows more about uptown zoning than he does. And so I know you'll be, I mean, you're already in his hands, but you'll continue to be in amazing hands. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Audrey.
Like Sydney.
Sydney's
Oh,
hand.
Sydney, sorry.
Oh, it's all good. I just wanted to say thank you, Audrey, for all your presence over the years. You know, we were with you quite a while here the last couple of years, and I just want to say thank you. Judging from years past, the 10 years that I was chairing, you guys really were more present than any other representative that we've had from DCP. So despite the challenges that we have been going through, I want to recognize that, Audrey, that you've been more present than probably most, and we really appreciate that. So thank you for your hard work, and you know we'll continue fighting, and we're going to continue challenging Jose, but we just want you to know that we do appreciate you very much. So
Thank you so much, Sydney.
And sorry, I just wanted to say something else. You know, I think the only silver lining on this is that, you know, HPD is getting an amazing planner that knows the area, and is gonna definitely help them in the future of the work in Upper Manhattan, especially hopefully in CB9. You know, I think when we got 1727, using just this for an example, you guys know that we treat this as any other application. It's not an application from the Department of City Planning. So it's as it was a private application with our recommendation and expertise. But at the end of the day, they are the applicants, and they had the proposal. But, you know, Audrey has worked with them extremely hand in hand and pushed them much more than whatever we can even hope to have any other planner do at in the agency, you know. And also I don't see Barry here either, but I believe, you know, I have worked with Barry for almost 6 years now, and you know, it was the only time that he was happy to have the level of community input and support when Audrey was in our team when we did City of Yes, and the recognition from that. So, you know, we look forward to continuing the partnership here at the Department of City Planning, but I'm happy for Audrey for, you know, going to HPD and, you know, working more related to affordable housing. That's going to be good for them. I know I like HPD keep stealing our planners, and you know, they are getting all that talent. So we expect they do better next time, you know, not just in CB9, but in all the other projects.
Yeah, that's a great point, Jose. Audrey, good luck at HPD, and really, I do hope that, you know, no similar project comes through our community again, thanks to your revitalization of that, you know, ossified agency. Jose, I think you and Signy are the people whom I've known longest because you've been attending these meetings so long. So DCP really does a great job at reaching out, you know. I don't think I've ever seen HPD here, but but Audrey, I'm sure you're gonna change that, right? You're gonna come and more often. So good luck, and thanks for all your help over these past few months.
Thank you. And I hope so.
You will. If you've observed us long enough, you will. You will. At the end of the day, it really is community partnerships. You know, whatever projects or whatever initiatives you work on as you go into HPD, we'll let that, you know, useful knowledge come to you. Because at the end of the day, community partnerships, if you do it the right way, it'll look like you have a magic wand. And other people won't understand why, but it's because you connect with us. And because we're, you know, we're in support of what you're doing, at the same time, we can support what you're doing. And rather than try to fight you, we could, you know, we could be hand by hand on whoever we need to yell at to make sure your plans go through. So definitely appreciate everything you've done.
Yeah, and I hope we can, you know, continue that partnership and strengthen that partnership. And I will just, the last thing is, you know, especially working, you know, during this 1727 Amsterdam and particularly through the City of Yes conversations, it there are the level of sophistication and engagement of this board is second to none. And you know, we got comments from a lot of other staff like, wow, you know, this board really knows their stuff. Like, do they want a job at city planning, you know? And so so that's been a real pleasure, and I really appreciate that energy, so thank you.
Someone should tell the majority leader.
David, do you wanna?
Well,
Well, if you guys ever talk to the mayor, please let us know that we would love to meet with him and talk to him, or even his office, anyone.
Sure thing.
And if you talk to them first, also let them know that we want to talk to them.
I was gonna ask, Sadia's started yet with you guys? Has Miss Sadia Sherman started with you guys
It's
yet?
very serious.
She starts on the 16th, right, Jose? But I believe there's a review session that day. Is that correct, Jose?
Yeah, we're Vice Chair Knuckles is gonna chair that
Yeah.
review session. And new Commissioner Sherman will be at the public hearing. Mhm.
Thank you.
So gonna give a report on 621 53rd Street. Anybody who's not paying really close attention is gonna think that I'm still talking about 1727 Amsterdam. It's the trajectory on this matter is very similar. Just as a quick review, this is the building on West 153rd Street that was built 14 stories above its legal limit. From the very beginning, I'm sorry, I should back up for a second. And the owner applied to the Board of Standards and Appeals for variance in order to legalize the illegal height of that building. And from the very beginning, the Board of Standards and Appeals and the developer have consistently refused or neglected to follow the procedures of notice to the community board. This application was filed in August. They were required, I think, within 5 days to notify us by email and also by regular mail addressed to the chair of the community board, Victor Edwards, and file an affidavit of service with the Board of Standards and Appeals. They did not do that. We didn't hear about this application until October, when they showed up at one of our Housing, Land Use and Zoning Committee meetings and told us that they had applied for this. We weren't given, I think, a copy of the application until the middle of October. We were supposed to have 60 days in which to have a hearing on the community board. Had the opportunity to conduct a hearing and put in a recommendation. They didn't give us those 60 days. They held a hearing on they meaning Board of Standards and Appeals, held a hearing on this on December 8th without providing us formal notice of the hearing. The applicant filed new documents without ever notifying all of this in flagrant violation of their own rules. The standard The argument that the applicant was making with respect to the variance was that it had relied in good faith on a permit issued by the New York City Department of Buildings. And that is an argument that's based on specific case law, which requires that they establish, in addition to the fact that the Department of Buildings incorrectly issued a permit, which is conceded in this case, that they did not have constructive notice that the permit had been issued by mistake. In point of fact, they did have constructive notice because it was very clearly written in the zoning resolution that the building was more than double its legal height. Notwithstanding this fact, the Board of Standards and Appeals at their meeting on December 8th decided to or voted to grant the application. Since then, I have been undertaking to alert various elected officials that this incredible miscarriage of justice is going on, making the point to everyone that had a building been built 14 stories above its legal limit in any upscale community in the city of New York, this would have been on the front page of the New York Times. There would have been 35 lawsuits commenced by this time, but I have to say I have not. I've kind of felt like one of those really bad nightmares where my feet were stuck in bubble gum. And actually, Audrey, after this wonderful send-off that we gave you, and which I will not retract, I did send the request to DCP back in, I think, around the middle of February. And has there been any response to that communication?
Audrey, I can take
Yeah.
that. One of the things that we're discussing in here internally is, the variance is pursuant to the BSA authority. One of the many, I guess, complications or sometimes, I'll say frustrating issues in city government is that every single agency has their own purview to make these calls and determinations. When this issue came to us, I believe it was very heuristic, and my first reaction was to say, yes, this is it's a non-compliance. However, when we check internally, we were told that, it's up to DOB to determine, Department of Buildings to determine the non-compliance, because DCP writes the zoning and DOB interprets the zoning. And as you mentioned, this was an error, a human error, given the nature of the zoning that is, they call it obscure. For us, it might be less obscure because we're so familiar with the applicability for Community Board 9 or in general for Upper Manhattan. But it happened. There are people who were responsible, including I believe the land use attorney who worked on the analysis of the proposal, and also the architect who put this, plans together. And DOB's responsibility was to issue a what is it called, that the retrieve the construction and ask them to go through the BSA, and the BSA has determined that this issue has qualified for the variance. They had those findings similar to how we would put together a special permit or an authorization, and in the variance they had to meet specific conditions, and conditions are very open to interpretation rather than when you have findings, when you had to really meet those findings. and the variance case is a condition. And, at the moment what we're told, and, I haven't followed up with our general counsel, but what we were told on this were that, since BSA has make this determination, we cannot get involved in the determination. It will come through either a city council member or the law department. But, if I was part of the hearings because I was involved in this and getting a little more information in general, because I didn't believe they were able to get the variance, to be frank with you. And I was surprised they did, given the, the good grace and, sorry, the good faith process and interpretation of the BSA. But yeah, that's as much as I have to tell. Like I said, it's part of like another agency's authority. And I'm sorry to keep saying this when, we have come to you with City of Yes and all these proposals, and then it feels like we are, having our hands clean after something is done and completed. That's not the case. We try to be as involved as possible with the constraints that are given to us.
Well, let me say, I'll say that I appreciate your having looked into this. But city planning is actually the only agency that can appeal this decision. The community board does not have standing. And in fact, under the rules and regulations, it is the city planning that has the right to do this. I respect the fact that you checked in with BSA on this, but it's really council's office that I would have hoped would have looked at, your council's office would have looked at this a little more closely, only because the findings are inaccurate. The legal analysis is inaccurate. They say that they relied on the opinion of council, and if you read the letter that council wrote, they specifically exempted any opinion as to whether the building was too high or not. And BSA in its determination just kind of flew past that without even looking at the letter. The developer took the position that it was the fault of his architect, but it's his architect, he doesn't get to blame it on his architect and say, well, it's not my fault. The architect was working for him. The building code makes it very clear that the architect is working at the behest of the owner. So the idea that they could say, and this was apparently bought by BSA, that it wasn't developer's fault, it's the architect's fault, is absurd. As I think we pointed out, the court cases all say that you're not entitled to claim good faith reliance if you had notice of the fact that the building permits were mistakenly issued. And constructive notice means, was there a law that clearly stated that this was illegal? And there was, in fact, and they even acknowledged there was a law that clearly stated. I mean, it's just a miscarriage of justice. But
I'm interested on hearing what you said first about us being able to do something about it, because like I said before, we are meeting a new administration, a new head of the department, and this process is typically, in the next month or so, we're going to be bringing issues, general feedback to the new chair of the department, and it's potentially something that I'll discuss with leadership to see if it's something that we could get more involved on this. But not our general counsel, but a counsel I checked with, their response was exactly that it was BSA's authority and going over their head will not be something that DCP will do, especially because we are not an enforcement agency. And I want to, that's the word that I was remembering. Yeah.
So Jose, first of all, thank you for looking into it. I know David has been working on this tirelessly and it has been a source of lively conversation here at the meetings. And also just like confusion, perplexity, and concern. I think you're right, and one of the things that we've suggested is to follow up with the council member, and we wanna do that, and I think there has to be an element sort of beyond this, but. Well, I mean, David's really spent a lot of time working on this. I think you know, but he's a former attorney. And I just wonder, is there a way to speak directly to Alec or someone in that office? Because I just, it seems like it wasn't looked at as closely as it should have been, and obviously, enforcement is up to individual agencies. But if there are legal questions there, I mean, I guess it would just make sense for, it seems unfair for them to leave you and I here speaking about this, and we're both not attorneys. Do you know what I mean? Like, it just seems like someone in the law. I don't know if David, that would be.
I would love to. I mean, I'm also gonna write a request for re-argument to BSA and put together a new memo, because what I sent to Audrey now is out of date because they've now formalized a resolution, so things have changed somewhat. So in the next week or so, I'd like to be able to send you something with a respect to, with a request. Perhaps that maybe I could communicate directly with council.
If you address the letter to our general counsel, we can pass it along similar to how we did with when it was addressed to the chair when 1727 came on board. Even before they had to do the Euler, we passed it along, and our executive offices got involved on that and had a response. So if you do email an actual official letter that we can pass it along, that will be helpful. What I did is a consultation, kind of like elevator pitch to our council in a internal discussion, and this is the answer that I got. I get to work more closely with with Alec. I think we only have worked in 2-3 projects so far. He's fairly new to the agency, but he's a really good person in general, and a great lawyer as well. So hopefully I can pick his brain one of these days. But if there is an official letter that we will have to respond, it would be much better in terms of leverage.
Okay, and when you say an official letter, who should that be addressed to?
Right, because he keeps saying passing it on to who?
The Jen, did you see Alec? I forget his last name. Schreier.
I can't pronounce it, but I can send it to you. Yes, either Alec or the department director or the chair.
Can I send you an email asking you for those addresses?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, when I said pass it along, I mean you can send a letter just addressed to, and I can bring it to them. I didn't mean I just gonna like hand it over and pass it, but I can also send you the email addresses.
That would be true, and I do appreciate what you've done so far, and I appreciate the suggestion as well. So I don't want to take up too much more time, because I think we've, but I am intending to submit a motion for re-argument. I actually put together a list of the 15 or 20 public officials who I reached out to, none of which have responded. But I don't think that's gonna be helpful to take the time.
Is it possible, sir? Is
Yeah.
it possible to maybe get like Columbia School of Journalism or like law school? Because
Columbia is doing an article, the Spectator is doing an article about, I reached out to the New York Times, I had.
But they are doing an article because
They are.
from a legal, because I'm gonna turn, I mean, I don't, it's not my practice area, but I mean, if there's.
Me neither.
Well, if there's a miscarriage of justice.
Yeah.
You know, from the fruits of your research show that, and they have standing, and it's like, we need to
It's just something that should be known, because if it's not addressed, then that's kind of.
Well, I believe an article is coming out next week. I'm actually, I've been talking to a reporter there and she assures me.
Yeah,
It's so corrupt of how they pass the ball to each other in the open, in front of everybody, and nobody takes the blame. And no, it's not my agency, no, it's this elected official. And they just go at it and they talk and we sit here and we listen. It's sickening.
No, when the electeds change, it starts all over again. Then they're learning.
Yes.
Yeah, I kind of recognize the timing, it's not good. Just because the change in administration.
It's a terrible look.
But
It's a terrible look to be involved in that. Say it's not my fault.
And
But thank you, David, for everything that you do.
I know Karen was
thank you.
working with you a little bit, or at least talking with you about this, so maybe we should like figure out a way to have the community organization. And maybe the,
Karen's kind of recused herself.
I know. Like, I shouldn't say that, so, it just. Like, there could be a concerted effort toward the, council member to exert some, you know, I don't know, take an opinion, take a position.
Yeah.
Because it does seem like, you know, at the same time that 1727, as you pointed out, same time that 1727 is happening, there's another missed opportunity for more affordable housing that's already built in this case.
Yeah, I mean, let me say in all honesty, this is not on the scale of 1727. I mean, it feels like 1727 to me because it's so frustrating. But in terms of the opportunities that are being missed, 1727 is huge. This is just like kind of an insult for the community.
Well, but then Department of City Planning puts out a report that says Community Board 9 produces 0 units of affordable housing, right? And I've seen Barry and Signy spend months negotiating 6 or 7 affordable units out of the new shelter that's being built. So I mean, you know, if they could get, they're 14 stories higher, how many units is that?
Trying to remember, 238 units, I think, in all, so it's probably half of that number.
It's 100 and, I mean, if they were able to get, you know, half of that.
No, they got a humongous windfall.
Yeah.
Because they got 14 extra stories with all these views of neighbors who by law are not allowed to build above the 14th floor. So they're making a killing. And they're laughing all the way to the bank, which is kind of sad, but yeah.
What's
about the authority to act in states? I mean, how the agency or is legal counsel, is their legal counsel merely, you know, office such that they can just attempt to bend the law to see whatever. So,
I'm sorry, who's the CTC's legal?
no, do you think that they got, yeah, standing to file suit from a political standpoint? Which decision is it? The action that's standing.
Well, the community board by statute does not have standing to bring a lawsuit. DCP by statute in this particular instance does. How they make that decision, I really don't know. I mean, I'm trying to figure that out myself.
And it's like, I think the point is that no agency is gonna take a position against another agency. I think that's just standard city government practice. And, you know, it's.
Well, in this particular instance, I think that DCP has a huge stake in not allowing this to go. Because what this precedent basically says is, if you can get bamboozling the Department of Buildings, then God bless you, because DSA is going to do that. And that's not a good situation. I mean, I don't think that a planning agency would really like that precedent to be out there, but that's not for me to say. Anyway, I don't want to take up more time on this, but
A good discussion. So next up, I wanted to bring up the zoning 101. We're confirming March 21st. And then I didn't get a chance to respond, but I do agree with you on the charter amendments. So like, we were looking at the subjects for the zoning 101, which would include the zoning 101, ULURP, doing a quick break and some time for like a Q&A, then do City of Yes, and then the Manhattan Plan. We did have the charter amendments on here, but Audrey would pointed out that there's going to be an entire dedicated thing to just the charter amendments on March 16th. So it's I made sure to add it on the committee alerts that I shared on the chat. But yeah, I would kind of say like definitely taking advantage of the Trust Amendment workshop, coming to the zoning 101 workshop here, and then being prepared to follow up with testimony on April 1st. So April 1st is when there's going to be a public hearing about the proposed rules, which let me add that here.
Was in that, It was in that.
Cool. So the link I'm sharing is gonna be a copy of the proposed rule changes. And then the upcoming public hearing for April 1st. So with that, and then with the 101 with the zoning 101, as well as the charter workshop.
Okay, I'm sorry, when is the charter workshop?
March 16th.
I will drop a link in the chat for registration. The description of the event is short and sweet. It's at the top of the registration. Jose and I and many of the city planning staff will be learning right along with you. This is all very new to us, so we're hoping to come away with some good takeaways.
Audrey, are you dropping a link for the charter amendment?
Yes.
Okay, and that's March 16th at what time?
At 6 p.m.
6 p.m.
The second thing that I'll share, which Audrey and Jose, you guys might find useful as well, is because we have a great relationship with CUNY, particularly the J. Bond Mack Center. They shared with us a report that they did. That is specific to what they I guess they took a look at the proposed rules, and they gave an overview of what this, what the implications are, particularly for community boards 9 and 10, only because 9 and 10 has had a partnership with this particular center for quite a while. So I shared it in the chat. Definitely feel free to go through that as well. I like the fact that the J. Bond Mack Center takes real life cases and they kind of show like, well, here's something, that was developed in the past. Here's what it looks like with the new charter amendments and what that change looks like. So I really like the way they kind of go about that and they kind of give those implications. It's definitely gonna help, come up with like ideas that I currently have. I think the biggest thing that I have an issue with so far is what constitutes an affordable unit. Because I think in the proposed rules, when using the definition of affordable housing, we got to talk about affordable for who. And so I think one of the things that we have to look at is, from a developer standpoint, if I'm putting out affordable quote unquote units at 120% AMI, I'm technically checking a box and fulfilling an affordable obligation, but it isn't really affordable and accessible to anybody in this neighborhood, and the answer is going to be no. So I think that's kind of like the first thing that came to my mind as I'm looking at this, but of course, if we learn more, And as you're going through the proposed rule changes, I'm sure there are other things in there that we could also look at. So definitely take a look at those resources. They're very unique to us, and it's gonna be helpful for our next steps. Looking at the mayor's preliminary budget, I'm moving on to the next thing.
Well, actually, before we,
Yes.
the training, the zoning 101 training is going to be the 21st, correct? Did we,
Yeah.
Audrey, was there an agreement as to the length of the training? Because I saw that there was some back and forth on that.
Mateen, what did we propose? It started at 11 and went till
I have
1 o'clock.
Mm-hmm.
And I also said, you know, I'm available, you know, to answer questions beyond that time. So really depends, you know, what the board is feeling and how the conversation is going. You know, I think it's a pretty rare opportunity that we all get to sit down and discuss these things. And I have time on Saturday, so yeah, but I defer to the board on you know, on scheduling beyond that.
So, will you send a link to us for that training?
Jose and I are still, you know, refining it because it's, you know, it's a bit of a special training for CB9, but certainly as soon as it's ready, we will send you a link.
Okay, and that'll be distributed to all the members of the board, correct?
Okay. Let me double check on that. I don't see why that would be a problem, but let me double check and
Let us know if that's a problem. Yeah.
sure. And then I'll confirm with HPD, you know, what their plans or no plans are for the charter amendments, if they'll be able to speak to that. So.
And we're still okay with recording the training, so we could also share abroad?
Our leadership has been out of office for a little while. So let me double check on that, but I don't anticipate there being an issue. Do you have any comments, Jose?
No, and I was gonna say, typically we share this trainings materials after the meeting. You know, just in case there's some, you know, last minute additions that we might want to add because they're gonna be publicly available. So that's typically the case. As Audrey has mentioned, you need to get this vetted, given that there's a lot of new information in this, and it requires extensive, you know, internal coordination, especially since, you know, you probably guys know, but we also got a community engagement and planning division, and you know, they had to kind of like be involved on this. They were working on similar materials. They're not coming fast enough for other, you know, the request trainings that we have, but we also had to coordinate with the board of president office, who also do trainings on this. So there's a lot of layers on it, but we'll definitely have information for the 21st, and you know, try to get this as smooth as possible. It's a lot of information and a lot of briefings that we need to do between now and then.
Okay, if you could get back to us relatively quickly on who will have access to this in terms of community board, because we've only got 11 days, so we certainly want to give as much notice as we possibly can.
Yeah.
Sydney has her hand.
Oh, thank you, Sydney.
Hey there. No, actually, you just touched upon it, David. Just wanted to double check, yeah, who we're inviting to this and making sure we get plenty of notice in hand on this. It's also, had you already done something for other community boards, and is this an opportunity to allow other chairs and co-chairs to be involved?
That's a good question. One thing is, you know, now we other living, you know, I don't want to be responsible for doing the training for all 12 community boards, because that's something that definitely will happen. But the other thing is that we had done a lower level of this type of trainings in other boards. This one is a little more comprehensive in what we're aiming to do. And like I said, we need to get this approved and better in the best way so we can have all the information that we want to share with you ready. But there is a possibility that somebody has emailed to you guys today or yesterday, I believe. In fact, some of the information that we were hoping to share being a little bit limited, or having some issues in there to allow distributing those materials.
Jose, do you need more time? I mean, are we being too ambitious in saying this is gonna be ready for the 21st or?
No, I'd rather work with that timeline, especially, August last day is the 26th. I don't think there's much room to push this, back on that, and it will give us some also. But if it comes to that, I will definitely let you know within a week or so, to have something. Yeah.
Yeah, I realize that with Audrey's timeline, that does make a big difference, but so from our point of view, it's probably more urgent if we can record this so we can distribute it later to other members of the board. I mean, I think we can agree that we're not gonna be sending this out to everyone, but at least to get as many people in Community Board 9 involved is really ideal from our point of view.
Yeah, for sure. And the new chair is starting with the 16 as well. So it just wanted to say that it's a little more, complicated than we anticipated, in terms of what we're producing or what we're sharing right now. All right, we'll follow up.
Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. Let me see. All right. Cool. So the next thing I wanted to share, and I'll put it in the chat here too. So this is going to. Paste and send. There we go. All right. So I'm also sending this in the chat. So you sent out responses. So it's essentially back in October, we met as a board. We came and we ended up prioritizing things for the upcoming budget in terms of capital and expense funding. And in January, I'll be released the preliminary budget report. So when I paste it into the chat, it's going to be very specific to housing, land use, and zoning. So everything that you're gonna, or at least I thought it was until I'm looking at this now. I see aging, sugar. And I thought I did this so well too. Oh, no, see, I did this half a pound.
Well, it doesn't matter, too much is better than too little.
Yeah, no, I tried to customize it by pulling certain pages out. Might have to just resend this. But yeah, no, I essentially wanted to show some of the responses that kind of came in. The good thing is a lot of what came in are things that we're seeing the agencies want to support. Meaning there's no funding to accommodate some of the things that we're seeking to prioritize. And that's kind of why in the community alerts that I shared in the chat earlier also has a list of the preliminary budget hearings from City Council. Because one of the best things to advocate in terms of what's the responses onto the budget, particularly anything where we see the agency is supporting but they can't accommodate, typically because of funding. Going to those preliminary budget hearings with City Council is a great way to submit testimony. Anything that we've, spoken about on the board, that has been, put onto the priorities that should be spoken about at the budget hearings. Thing is, you have a template with the responses to, essentially use, when speaking about some of these things. And so, this is just something I wanted to share so that folks had access to it, you're able to review it. And then as we follow up with the next steps on the budgeting process with youth and the executive board, I'll also share those updates as well. But that's all I have on the preliminary. Or do I have any questions before I move on real quick? Perfect. The great thing is this last one we've already spoken about. This one's about the charter amendments themselves. So Audrey posted the registration for the upcoming workshop on the 16th. Highly recommend folks go to that one. And again, there's going to be a hearing on those proposed changes on April 1st, which is also on the notice that I shared on the chat.
City council hearing or who's hearing?
Sorry, this is city planning, the city planning public hearing.
I've been on so many meetings, I mean, it's just pathetic. Unbelievable.
Here, let me pull this up, yeah. So this is when and where City Planning Commission will hold a public hearing on proposed rule. It'll take place at 10 a.m. on April 1st. Over at the Public Commission room at 120 Broadway. The address is wrong. Oh, I'm wrong. I don't know. The zip code.
Yeah, that's 10013.
Yeah. Yeah, but everything else is correct. But yeah, you'll be able to see, how you're able to speak at the hearing, when the deadlines is to submit your any comments, and then the actual proposed rules and methodology after the statement of basis. Really good read. Highly recommend going through it. HPD also said they have something on a website. They didn't really send something as sophisticated as city planning did. But we, as we learn more about the zoning process and as we get more familiar with, with these things in the future, especially with any kind of upcoming changes with building more housing in the district, we're definitely going to need to be prepared with as much tools as we need. Just thinking about 1727. But that's all I have for new business. Do we have any questions before I move on?
No.
The affordable housing fast track is, so is this just like the formalization? Is that what this is? Cause I thought that the affordable housing fast track was already underway.
They have to, the charter amendments were voted on and accepted. So now all these agencies have to enact rules to effectuate those charter amendments. And so they're proposing rules. They have to have hearings about the rules, and that's what's going on now.
But they're already using them also.
I don't think there's anything that's going into that pipeline yet.
Well, I know that for instance, the alert, the expedited alert was just, but would just happen. It happened the day after 1727 was voted on. Yes, and I had seen other advertisements for the affordable housing fast track. I don't know. That's so it's weird.
I think that you still have to go through the process of doing an application, whatever the application is. So I don't think anything, am I wrong? Is anything going through the pipeline yet? They don't have rules in place, do they? Jose, Audrey, can you comment on that?
Yeah, so we are starting to, and I'll preface this by saying we are also learning about it, from a process aspect. This, at the same time the public is. But we have been told, there are certain projects that we might want to flag that could be eligible for these things, but there's no David, as you were saying, there's no procedural rules in place right now, or rather that's still being worked out. And that is to the best of my understanding.
Fair enough.
Any idea what they're aspiring for? 'Cause it generally takes about 7 to 8 months. We're gonna cut that down to, what, 6, 5?
I mean, for the whole EU program.
3 months, really.
3 months.
No, no, it's 6, it's not 3 months. Yeah, sorry, Audrey, you should speak.
Oh, no, you're good. It's project dependent. If this is just, are you just talking about the affordable housing fast track or about the infrastructure projects or? Sorry,
Yeah,
I might have missed the
It
fast
depends.
track.
The ELR is what, the expedited ELR?
Yeah. Let me double check on that. I'll get back to you.
Some are 3 months and some are 6. I think the BSA stuff may be really short.
Yeah, no, and I think Jay Bond may have put in, I think there's,
Yeah.
an infographic.
As far as we're concerned as community boards and committees, does that curtail our ability to?
They haven't really done much takeaway stuff from the community board, but because they eliminated city council basically from almost all of Eula, it allows us less opportunity to have influence on the project because we can't work with our council person to get concessions.
Right.
So they haven't cut us out of the process, but they have undermined the influence of community boards. I think, I mean, that was kind of the takeaway I got from the JMX Bob stuff.
So they announced a project on which they're planning to use the ELR, but I assume that because they haven't adopted a procedure yet. But they say the first project to use the 90-day expedited land use review procedure. And this is the advertising that they've been putting up all over social media.
I have a question. Yes. So we could still have, as a community, we could still have a public hearing on a development, post-development, gather that information, community feedback, and then we would present it to, I mean, we'll, because city council's put out, where do we then?
I think it goes to DCP. It used to be that it went to the borough president's office. Now, the borough president and the community board simultaneously are reviewing. So, it's just gonna change the dynamics of this thing enormously.
No, and I'm looking at the picture, so it seems like after the advisory review, seems like it just goes straight to BSA.
Which one? They're all different.
Yeah, so for the
fast rate zoning, yeah, but the ELR.
What is that?
That's the one at the bottom.
Sure, okay, yes.
So.
Seems to be making everything larger except the document. If I can go bigger. I don't care. Oh, yeah. Thank you. Nice, there we go.
So there are two new ones, which are the two lower ones. Cause the ULURP standard process, that still listens. So it's there's one that goes directly to BSA. We have nothing to do with, and ELURP. And its joint review with BP, you can read down from community board. And then I think that goes to city planning at the end.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Shortened hearing of votes.
Yeah, you have to go down a little bit to show
Yeah.
what everybody's role is
City
here.
planning, city council.
They're removed, and so is the mayor.
Yeah, well, the mayor at the end of the process is on this board, this board.
Right.
With the borough president and the city council president, is that right?
Yeah, or.
I guess I
Or
can-
this is like David.
The only real way to shoot that.
This is the charter, this shows the new city charter amendments, how uniform land use decisions now flow.
Right, okay.
It's not updated, it's just what it was at that time. Yeah, it doesn't work anymore.
That's what I was.
Except for except for the standard process.
Okay, cool, that's what I was kind of.
Is,
So essentially speaking, unless we make a big stink out of something, and get the mayor to veto it, we stand quite in a very low chance of really affect the process in any meaningful and substantive way.
you know, given the nature of politics, I would assume that all these neural networks are gonna start, forming and things are, there are gonna be new political networks where hopefully we'll be able to get a little bit more leverage than what this looks like.
Yeah,
To the extent we can impart any advice on them, be vociferous, be early. That's not.
No, they, part of the crazy thing that I was reading was, especially if, let's say we had a adequate council member. Who worked with us to actually put in some of these benefits. The same developer could then go to BSA and be like, yeah, I don't want to do any of that.
Right.
And BSA could be like, yeah, okay. Yeah, so it's like, it even kind of like destroys the council members, like, if they're all,
Oh, it's totally, and that was the whole point.
That's the point, yeah.
The last one, the mayor is taken out unless only the
Yeah.
city council is involved on the very bottom. What is that?
That's-
yeah.
Right, so
So let's say the city council made it, let's say Sean and Brady would agree with us and push for our recommendation.
okay,
This essentially could remove any of that. So if the city council did any kind of negotiation for past, like projects.
right.
They can now go and say, yeah, I know we made this deal like a few years ago, but it doesn't work for us now. And they can now.
Retroactively affect, I mean, that's ridiculous.
It's just,
I don't,
I'm trying to tell you.
What?
Crazy.
well, that's why they got rid of it, was because, or why they did the charter amendments. Was because they felt that individual city council members were vetoing all these affordable, which was true,
Yeah.
which was absolutely true.
I mean, not
Whether-
TV9, but
Yeah,
yeah. Whatever.
Yeah.
Obviously.
But there's something else here that's missing from this chart, I think, which is there's an appeals council at the end.
Oh,
And
yeah,
it doesn't show it on that chart, so I'm not for.
I think it's this.
It's a two.
That's like for things that go before the BSA, or what do you call it?
They come up with a new council for.
Appeals board, it's that appeals board at the end.
And do they have standing to appeal?
No. No, we don't have. I don't think we, no.
And the speaker and the borough president.
Yeah.
I will just say, sorry to interject, but these for the appeals board, for example, the application has to only be located in one borough, so a citywide proposal would not be subject to this 3-member appeals board. And it's only triggered by certain, conditions if their council, if it includes affordable housing. If it's located in one borough, and if the city council disapproves it, then it can be taken up by this affordable housing appeals board. Doesn't mean that every, project that goes through ULURP, will be subject to this appeals board.
Right.
So just, highlighting that to say that there's for a lot of these, and again, still learning, but there's a lot of nuance for which projects will qualify.
Thank you.
Well, we'll look forward to hearing more about this. I mean, I think we all have a lot of work to do to figure this thing out.
Yeah.
We used attend the info session virtually on the 16th at 6 p.m. I dropped the link in the chat, and hope to see you there.
With that, that's all I have for new business. Do we have any updates on RKO? I don't have any new legislation that we're looking at. Is there anything that we haven't listed? I mean, we have Reso 9 extending dam tax exemptions for HDFCs.
Andres, we never put your
Letter.
letter on the agenda.
Oh, I was going to raise it for action. Should I raise it now? Okay, now's the time.
Only if you're ready.
I mean, I sent you a draft. I think it would be, I was.
Well, the only thing is, I don't think everybody has that graph. We can put it up on
We can put it up
board,
on
maybe.
whatever you guys want, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this was from last month's meeting. Yeah, do you want to
Yeah.
just refresh everybody's recollection about
Yeah,
that?
so last month, we met online, so I gave a little presentation, but essentially, I live in an HDFC that is regulated by an agreement with HPD. And as a consequence, largest consequences is that we the sales prices of our shares are highly restricted. And we are requesting a one-time exemption from that restriction. With the case of a sort of, I mean, this is kind of more laid out, but that's my request. That's our request to HPD, and we're requesting a letter of support from the community. This community board has historically been a staunch supporter of HDFCs because the highest number of HDFCs are concentrated in this geographic area. And because the former co-chair, Bill Tyler, was one of the sort of pioneers with HDFCs. So anyway, this is the letter. I mean, would you like me to read it?
I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I started reading it as it popped up.
Is everybody comfortable with doing this, or do you want to have more time to review this?
More time to review,
Okay.
for me anyway.
I would agree, only because I haven't read it up until now.
Yeah, if that's, unless you have a real hard deadline here.
This letter summarize the restrictions that you guys are looking to use up on.
Yes, the restrictions, I mean, it's right there, like, as a consequence, the sale price of the limit of the unit is limited to $65,000 by the regulatory agreement in 2020. That number goes up like $250 every year.
Right.
And so because this unit had to be taken out of foreclosure,
Yeah.
we're owed over $74,000 of maintenance for the unit. So we essentially be solidifying a loss by selling at this price. And the unit at a market rate would go for well over $225,000. So we're not asking for that,
Or
we're
like,
asking
just a letter.
to at least be able to make our costs back in. And also, you know, maybe to throw in some funds for capital improvement.
So we can't.
Yes, it's 50%.
Yeah.
And this is, we own this, we own these shares, so this, all of this is coming as income to us. But yeah, so. Yeah, I mean, you know, it's difficult to move units when you have these many restrictions. We are moving some, but you know, it's not as simple as a regular market deal. But yeah, definitely, and 50% is both. It's a small building. It's not bad. But we're going to suggest a number. I think we're going to suggest like 125,000 or 150,000. We have to speak with one of the attorneys. But you know, we would be happy that, you know, HPD would consider the request and allow, you know, they're gonna make this determination. One of the conditions of the regulatory agreement is that the acceptance of this exemption is at their sole discretion. And so, you know, we're gonna suggest a number, but make very clear that, you know, we understand that they're able to make the ultimate decision, you know. So that would be.
Should our letter of support reference that number?
I don't. Do you think it would be helpful?
Someone who was the director of fire safety. Because if we add the number and it's determined to be unreasonable, I mean, unless you've done the due diligence and at least have a pretty high chance of accepting it, then it's better just to get a letter of support from us. Than it is to get a letter of support for something that ultimately proves to be not what they should do.
I've heard of two routes for the exemption. One is a one-time sales exemption for like this one unit. And then the other one, and I think this is probably the more accurate way, they sort of, for this one unit, they create a separate schedule of sale prices. And that sort of becomes what will follow this one unit. And so I think they have a bit more experience with determining how that's gonna work.
Right, so either it's only this particular sale that's exempted, or it's this unit that's exempted.
That's sort of in my conversations with the monitor, which is you have, and in my conversations with the attorney who represents a number of HDFCs here. But the problem is with the one-time sale, it doesn't really add up as a possibility because
Then they would have to sell it for less than you bought it.
right, they would have to sell it for less than they bought it, and what if I decided to sell my unit the day after for a similar, like, I mean, I guess I would. Do you know what I mean, like, how would that work?
HPD's response for them, their account argument, it's not designed, HDFC units are not designed to be sold in the resources.
No, I just mean what, yeah, so I think generally what they'll do is create a different schedule, that's what I think how.
Wouldn't they have to? I mean,
I think, yeah,
That's tacked onto that unit,
just onto that unit,
Right.
just onto that unit, yeah.
but it's not gonna take it out, I mean, you're not, this HPD can't take it completely out of affordability and make it symmetrical.
Oh, and this is in no way affects like income requirements, affordability requirements, restrictions. No, it's just, in case it might not be clear because it's actually not the case with every HDFC, but like many HDFCs have income restrictions, right? You can only make a certain percentage of the AMI. Fewer HDFCs have a regulatory agreement that like lays out, okay, in year 10. In my building, for instance, studios, 1 bedrooms and 2 bedrooms can only sell for this price limit. So up until year 10, we were only allowed to sell our I think our 2-bedroom units for $42,500. Right, so you know, now we're in year 13 and the price has gone up $20,000. But the restrictions on sales are very specific and I'm not sure how they determine the numbers, but they change from, you know, year to year. And they don't go up very far.
but you do have income restrictions?
And there are, in addition,
Because if you do, then if you have a sale that's so out of whack, is there gonna be anybody who meets the income restriction who's gonna be able to afford that unit?
Yeah, many people are gonna be able to get a mortgage, right? Because I mean, even like, let's say we did $150,000, right? Someone would be able to get a mortgage for whatever they're able to,
Right.
uh,
10%.
right, to 10 or 20%, the difference. And then maintain that mortgage. And a mortgage for $150,000 is still, far less than, 300 or even a $500,000.
So is it okay if we table this till to the next meeting? Is that gonna be a problem?
I mean, well, we're speaking with HPD now, but I know this is a little late, so I don't know if there's any way to look at it before.
I'm fine doing this now.
I'm fine doing it, too. I was just, my question was just like, do we know
Right.
the ceiling for what HPD would?
Yeah.
That I'm just curious, but I don't know that, but I'm fine with doing it now.
Okay, but I think Teresa had some hesitation. Are you okay with doing this now?
Like I said, it's over my head right now. It's over my head right now. And it's been right now, it's over my head. Honestly speaking.
I'm kind of with the jury, so, only because HDFCs are not my strong suit, so I just don't.
Exactly. But I do have a update with NYCHA too, because I went to, I was with, what's her name? Her name is, Kristen Lasky. And she's with the Waste Management at NYCHA, so I had a Zoom meeting with them. It's basically, they were saying how NYCHA residents throw away like 3 pounds of trash every day, and that's a lot of waste. So they're forming this program and given, for a lot of options.
Oh, you're talking about food waste?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and it was really interesting, but it was like, I was like really involved with it, So they have this page called the Clean NYCHA page. It's a lot of, it's very informative, and it had a lot to do with the food scraps, like in this case, and NYCHA understands the importance of providing residents with the proper tools and things like that. Very interesting, and I teamed up with WEAC. Marcelli.
Yes.
She's great. So everybody's like organizing, they're looking for, what do you call, members to join their committee as well. You gotta be appointed to the Manhattan Borough President, so forth and so on. But it was really interesting, and it's like showing people how to, the trash disposals, things of that nature. I didn't know that NYCHA had so people throw away so much trash. It's a lot. And the older lady, she's up in the Polar Grounds. She's asking people for their food scrap for compost. She had a beautiful garden up there, they said. I said, wow, you know what I mean? I'm not ready to dig in nobody's gardens. But the program that they have is really pretty informative. So if you go on the page of the Clean NYCHA page, you'll find a lot of information. There was Juliet Sparrow, she's the program, she was the program director, and then there was Anita Chan, she was a program associate. I think it's something like that. Yeah, I don't have all my notes in front of me. Yeah, this is it. It was really cool.
Yeah, like I know in some developments, they ended up like widening the compactor.
Exactly. There was one young lady, like in certain buildings of NYCHA,
Yeah.
they have where you can dispose the litter like on the first floor. Because I know in my building, they put in new chutes, but you really can't put too much, like that bulk of trash down in those chutes. So it's smaller, the litter is smaller, so you have to take it downstairs. But when you take it downstairs, the the trash is like spiraling over because the lady was in Marble Hill and she had uploaded these pictures and it was like unbelievable. The garbage that when she comes out of her apartment, it was, I'm out of the building per se. It was like litter everywhere.
So they,
I thought down here was bad, but up in Marble Hill, she said the rats were running on the fences and the birds, I just couldn't, I couldn't really look at the photos that she sent in.
Oh, yeah, no,
It was like unbelievable.
I was at Forest and McKinley in the Bronx, this past weekend.
Right.
There was a shooting recently,
Right.
so there was response and stuff. But, it was my first time walking around, and it's just that, you know, like, and it's kind of crazy, cause like, you can see like folks are trying to do the right thing, or trying to, but I mean, when it's already piled, like, nobody wants to leave a pile of trash,
Exactly.
but like, when there's nothing else there. The interesting thing is on the response from, Rachel on the budget,
Yes,
we put in something about waste management.
yeah,
And I don't think I have it up here, but their response was unclear. Because it kind of, it sounds like the way they kind of like put it in the budget response was NYCHA staff cleans every single day. But when it comes to trash collection, it's sanitation who needs to come in more.
yeah, and that's what I was contemplating. Then it had the individual waste management action plan. That's another link that they had. Yeah, so you can upload that online. And there was flyers that you can share with, the residents through emails, things like that. It was really interesting because I didn't know how much trash. And Polo Ground alone, they have the staffing up there, spending about like $8 million a day to move trash. It's unbelievable.
That was a gift from the city after one of their laws forgot to, like they forget NYCHA exists. And so anytime there's like a scaffolding thing like that, of course, the NYCHA staff are unionized. So they're not gonna go up to the scaffolds, to clean anything. So they have to get a vendor. And it seems like on the NYCHA side, whenever they've tried to figure out different ways of going about it, it just ends up costing more money.
Yes,
Even if they try to do it on the regular, it means they have to pay an outside vendor to come
but
in.
$8 million.
Yeah,
And that's Polo Ground, like 4 buildings up there.
oh, yeah.
That's unbelievable.
one,
Yeah, 40% of our trash is food waste.
Yeah,
So
And
that's a remarkable problem that we as human beings are gonna have to solve. But a procedure, a question, are we saying that we're not gonna vote on that letter? Because this
I think
seems
we
like
have to
more-
go back to that, but.
No, but it seems like more people wanted to do something about it.
Okay, but I think we should just wait till.
Oh, yeah, I'm saying.
Yeah, I think we should go back. I agree.
Oh, great.
I agree. So,
So continue, Ms.
Grace, did you have anything more on
oh, no, I
Okay.
just some updates and like I said, I'm doing a lot of the Zoom meetings with Marcelli and Christian Lasky and Juliet Sperris and Anita Chance. So those are the people that I've been talking to and they're, putting a lot of questions to them. And they said that they will get back to me pertaining to some of the questions that we had, so.
Right
Yeah,
on,
I'm staying in communication with them, so yeah.
right on.
Okay, so. We should go back to Andre's issue, and maybe we should just take a vote as to whether we want to deal with this. It's probably the best. So does anyone want to make a motion to take a vote on whether we're gonna, I'll make a motion. I make a motion that we undertake to determine whether to approve Andre's letter.
1 second.
How many people are in favor of that? And is anybody who is opposed?
Oh, I'm in favor of it.
Oh, okay.
Just that I said it was just up to my head at the time.
Yeah, it's just that it sounds like he's under a gun here, so I'm not sure that we can.
I'll defer to everyone's expertise.
Okay, so should we all read this and just make sure we're comfortable with it?
I was wondering
I
it.
think we went over it.
Table it, right?
Oh, okay, okay, well, I wouldn't mind scrolling down just a little bit, because I didn't get to the button.
I mean, that price seems pretty low to me, this to getting, I mean, to get a mortgage for $75,000 is nothing.
Okay. I would,
Have the legal fees as well as like the improvements that.
No, so that's the legal fees plus the arrears owed on the unit. So the shareholder hasn't been paid for so long that over the year, the accumulated maintenance plus the legal fees for the non-judicial foreclosure, including the eviction fees, but yes, it's just the money owed to us by the utility corporate.
Yeah, and when you say needed funds for capital repairs.
Well, we need to bring hallways up to code. We need to do some major facade work, brick repair, mortar repair.
The entire issue.
Yeah, for the building.
And is that part of 74K or is that in addition?
Those are the funds that we use from the sale would go towards these kind of projects that we have, outstanding. That's why I'm going there.
Yeah.
Proposing friendly amendment.
Yeah.
Obviously, this year, we have HDFC bill, funding order, especially with the budget not careers and abilities. On the other hand, I don't think we've got needs that we should, would be a bad thing to ask for, would be fair. I'm not saying, but just not knowing them built down naturally and are not in position to engage. Can we use language to reflect for giving you guys whatever your own arrears and legal fees, and then vesting discretion in HPD to determine what increase, if any, would be equitable at this point?
Yeah, you mean sort of beyond that?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that would be perfectly acceptable language.
Yeah, because I don't want to say this as low as 65 grand, 74. But I also don't think I'm comfortable saying.
So that's the last sentence in that paragraph. We're thus seeking a single exemption to the regulatory agreement for unit 17 in order to facilitate a sale that would generate funds for capital repair. I see, so maybe we should add, that would facilitate a sale in order to recuperate co-op losses and any additional funded,
Without mentioning any specific one.
Right.
My hesitation about the amount is, at least I don't feel comfortable enough to feel I'm in a position to stipulate the dollar amount.
Is there an exact amount mentioned in that letter? I don't think there is, Alexander. I think he left left it open.
The 100,000 is a reference to.
Right,
Okay.
right,
Yeah.
right.
Okay.
So we have an executive committee meeting coming up on Thursday, so. Part of my motivation for questioning the idea of making changes would be. Difficult to do unless they're really required. Does anybody have any further questions for Andres? Andres? Anybody want to make a motion? Oh, come on, somebody wants a motion.
What are we doing here? We're signing the letter?
Yes, this is a letter of support.
You're the single exemption. Yeah. No, I'm comfortable with that.
Yeah. Motion to support.
Second.
Okay, it's unanimous consent.
Okay.
I saw 100 grand, I thought you were.
Oh, no. No, so what happened was that because of, anyway, I will get into the whole history of my HCC. It's 9 o'clock. I know you guys, well, we all have things to do.
So going back to NYCHA, right?
Yes.
AOC said, on the, we're gonna need $100 billion to fix the housing situation in Nitro. What is the state and the city doing about all the complicated maneuvers that it's gonna take to fix these huge developments?
Especially since 100 billion is our
Exactly.
state budget.
Exactly, 116.
Well, the good news is that the federal government has just spent $100 billion in the last 2 weeks.
While taking money away from HPDCI.
You know, I mean, it's just housing.
Yeah. It'd be like, who needs it?
He might put a value on a good missile.
Well, it's saying
Why
it's
are
a
they doing the privatization plan though?
Well,
It's
you know,
saying-
there's, what's the program that they're doing now where they're privatizing?
The rad.
Brad,
Yeah.
Brad and
Yeah,
Brad.
but
And
the,
this is
the
what we
red,
say, we need more people to understand the logistics of RAD and
Yeah.
PAC.
well,
A lot of
Red,
people don't
Red
know.
Pack is a program that's designed for better, for worse, and I think a lot of people think it's for worse, to address those repair needs, where they're essentially privatizing public housing. And they're getting developed.
Like
they're-
we're seeing over here.
Yeah, that's right, and
That's
the,
exactly.
But
They're doing it down in Chelsea, Elliott down there because that, you know, Hudson Yard is out. You know, where are you gonna put all these people? You know what I mean? Not everybody who lives in housing is non-desirable. You know what I mean?
And that is why I was so keen to take care of this HDFC, because the amount of money and resources that it costs to repair a building of any size in the city of New York is very overwhelming. If you are supposedly, if it's a couple of tenants trying to get together to fix a facade, like the facade in my building hasn't been fixed. I moved there in 1993. The landlord took over before 2000, and he's never put a scaffold. We are the only building that's never had a scaffold.
how many stories this year?
6, and we have an elevator. We don't even have an intercom. And here's the thing, right? The city has this law that every 5 to 7 years you're supposed to come and fix the facade. I would love to talk to you about that.
I think it doesn't apply to six, I think it's over 6 stories.
Look, here's the deal. Here's
Is
the
it
deal.
over 6? It's,
Over 5.
I thought
it might be, it's over,
It's
but
over
there's a,
5.
is it over 5?
Yeah.
Okay.
But I think they're trying to, I'm not trying to extend that.
Is that right?
And here's the thing, he would rather pay fines that the city gives than pay the millions of dollars that it's gonna take
Well,
him now to fix the facade.
The reason for that is because the city never collects these fines. They levy the fines, but then they never collect.
Oh, they still remove the time, like in the last 2
But
years.
they don't collect,
Hmm.
the only way they collect is when a owner sells a building. And then they have to pay off all the fines, but
Is
they
that a
don't.
personnel problem? Why don't they collect?
I don't know, but there, the city leaves hundreds of millions of dollars on the table,
Yeah.
in collected funds.
Who levies the fines on buildings?
HPD, GOB, ECB, I mean, they're all. sort of-
Oh, HPD is a disaster. Let's just
HPD
say it
is a
straight up.
disaster.
EOB is not even better. I'm
Say
so
that.
sick.
All right, this has been a long meeting.
Thank you.
Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Yes,
Do I have a second?
second.
All right, we are at 8:59 adjourning. I want to thank everyone for coming and attending today.
Yes.
We'll catch you.
Yeah, and again, thanks, Audrey, good luck. and
Thank you
we'll-
so much.
Bye.
We'll be in touch. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
And this is what happened.